I invited my daughter and her husband to celebrate my $18 million triumph, hoping for joy, but I saw only greed in their eyes. When the waiter grabbed my arm and whispered about their sinister plan, I fled through the service exit. You won't believe what happened 10 minutes later. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The champagne bubbles caught the restaurant's soft lighting as Charlotte and Jeffrey slid into their seats across from me. Something felt wrong immediately. They exchanged that look, the kind married couples share when they've rehearsed a conversation. "Dad, we need to talk about your will." "Now," Charlotte's voice cut through my celebration like ice water. Jeffrey checked his watch for the third time since arriving. "We don't have much time tonight, Arnold." I set down my glass. The $18 million sale documents still spread before me like a victory flag. "Kids, I'm so proud. 40 years of hard work, and finally—" "That's wonderful, Dad." Charlotte's smile never reached her eyes. "But about the will? You mentioned updating it after the business sold?" The waiter approached our marble table, his nameplate reading Marcus. I ordered Dom Perignon, the good stuff, wanting to share this moment properly. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Central Park stretched below us like a green carpet, perfect for my perfect moment. Except my daughter kept glancing at Jeffrey, who was practically vibrating with impatience. "Jeffrey, relax," I chuckled, sliding the sale contract toward them. "Scott Logistics just made us rich beyond our wildest dreams." He barely glanced at the papers. "Why wait so long to transfer assets? You're healthy, Arnold. These things take months to process." "Yes, Dad." Charlotte leaned forward, her manicured fingers drumming against the table. "You could transfer some properties now, get the tax advantages." Their urgency puzzled me. This was supposed to be a celebration dinner, not an estate planning session. Marcus returned with the champagne, his professional smile warming the suddenly cold atmosphere. "To family," I said, raising my glass. They clinked half-heartedly, Jeffrey still watching the time. "When I'm gone, everything will be yours anyway, Charlotte." Jeffrey's fork clattered against his plate. The sound echoed in our private dining alcove, sharp and metallic. His eyes snapped to Charlotte's face, something passing between them like electricity. "What Jeffrey means," Charlotte said quickly, "is that we worry about your health. All that stress, building the company. I'm 65, not 90. I laughed, but it felt forced now. "Besides, I plan to stick around long enough to spoil my grandchildren." Jeffrey's jaw tightened. "Grandchildren cost money, college, activities. Better to establish trusts now." "Trusts can wait." I studied their faces, the way Charlotte's smile had become brittle, how Jeffrey kept flexing his hands like he wanted to grab something. "This is about celebrating tonight." "Of course, Dad." Charlotte reached across to squeeze my hand, but her fingers felt cold. "We're just excited about the possibilities. 18 million opens so many doors." The way she said doors made my skin crawl, like she could already see through them to whatever lay beyond. Marcus refilled our glasses, his movements graceful and unobtrusive. At least someone here understood the concept of patience. I'd built my fortune on careful timing, strategic patience, reading people's true intentions. As I watched their eyes light up at mention of my death, something cold settled in my chest. It reminded me of another betrayal, long ago, when I was just a kid in Harlem. I was 12 when I first learned what betrayal looked like. It was 1962, and my mother had just passed from cancer, leaving me alone in our Harlem tenement with nothing but her last words. "Arnold, baby, you're gonna have to be strong now." Strong meant getting up at 5 a.m. to deliver newspapers before school. Strong meant ignoring the other kids playing basketball on 125th Street while I studied by candlelight, saving every penny for something better. They called me weird, antisocial, but I had plans they couldn't understand. "Arnold, you're different from us," Leroy Johnson said one afternoon, bouncing his basketball against the brick wall. "Why don't you ever just play? I'm going to be rich someday." The words came out matter-of-fact, no boasting. "You'll see." Leroy laughed, but not meanly. We'd grown up on the same block, shared the same poverty, but where he accepted it with teenage resignation, I refused to let it define me. While he shot hoops, I watched, analyzed, planned. At 14, I landed a courier job in Manhattan's financial district. Every morning, I'd take the subway from Harlem's cracked sidewalks to marble lobbies that gleamed like palaces. Men in expensive suits would hand me packages, their conversations floating over my head like music from another world. "Take this to Goldman Sachs, kid. Express delivery." "Yes, sir." I'd memorize their faces, their mannerisms, the way they moved through their offices like kings in their castles. During those delivery runs, I learned more about business than any classroom could teach. I watched how deals got made, how logistics flowed, how one delayed shipment could cost thousands. My supervisor, Mr. Chen, noticed my attention to detail. "Kid, you're smart. Don't stop at this job." I wouldn't. Every delivery taught me something new, how the accounting firms operated, which law offices handled the biggest clients, where the real money moved. I carried their documents like sacred texts, absorbing their contents through osmosis. In our cramped apartment, I'd count my daily earnings, $3, sometimes $4 if tips were good. While Leroy spent his money on candy and comic books, I saved every cent in an old coffee can under my mattress. Each coin represented another step away from the tenement, another brick in the empire I'd build. Someday I'll own one of these offices, I whispered to myself, standing in yet another gleaming lobby, my worn shoes squeaking against marble floors. The other courier boys thought I was crazy, spending lunch breaks reading discarded business journals instead of playing cards. But those journals contained treasure maps to success, and I memorized every route. By 16, I understood supply chains better than boys twice my age. I saw inefficiencies everywhere, opportunities that others missed. The dry cleaner who needed faster textile deliveries, the restaurant owner struggling with unreliable suppliers, small problems that could become big solutions for someone patient enough to build the right connections. Leroy would find me after school, still clutching whatever business magazine I'd rescued from a trash bin. "You live in a different world, Arnold." He wasn't wrong. In my mind, I was already there. The corner office, the respect, the security that money brought. Every package I delivered was practice for the empire I'd create. By 18, I had seen enough corporate boardrooms to know exactly what I wanted. The next step was building it, one contract at a time. 25 years old, with $3,000 saved and a head full of dreams, I rented my first office in the Bronx. One room, 2 desks, and a telephone that would become my lifeline to success. Scott Logistics was born in that cramped space. Just me and an answering machine that I programmed with fake company extensions to sound bigger than we were. "Scott Logistics, Operations Department," I'd answer, then transfer myself to Scott Logistics, Scheduling. One-man show, but clients never knew. Those first contracts came through pure hustle, 16-hour days, cold calls until my voice gave out, following every lead no matter how small. A Jewish delicatessen needed daily bread deliveries. A fabric warehouse required inventory transport. Unglamorous work, but each job taught me something new about timing, routing, customer service. Then Linda walked into my life. We met at a business networking event in 1987. She was a nurse. I was still the hustling logistics guy with dreams bigger than his bank account. She saw something in me that others missed, believed in the empire before the first brick was laid. "You're going to make it, Arnold," she'd whisper after another 18-hour day. "I can feel it." We married 6 months later. By 1988, Scott Logistics had expanded to 10 employees and a Manhattan address. Linda was pregnant, glowing with the promise of our future together. Everything was falling into place perfectly. Then Charlotte arrived and Linda didn't. Childbirth complications took my wife and left me holding this perfect, tiny human who would become my everything. In the hospital room, cradling newborn Charlotte, while Linda's machines flatlined, I made a promise that would define the next 37 years of my life. "Daddy's doing all this for you, princess." Single fatherhood transformed my ambitions. Every contract I signed carried Charlotte's future on its back. Business meetings became family affairs. Charlotte sleeping in her carrier while I negotiated deals, her baby gear scattered around boardrooms like tiny anchors to what really mattered. "Mr. Scott, your expansion idea is interesting but risky," the banker said, eyeing the diaper bag at my feet. "Life is risk. Either you play or you lose." I bounced Charlotte gently as she stirred. But some risks are worth everything. Through the 90s, Scott Logistics grew from local courier service to regional technology-enabled supply chain solutions. Charlotte grew alongside the company, taking her first steps in our expanding offices, saying her first words during client calls. Every milestone, hers and the business's, felt connected, purposeful. I brought her to ribbon-cutting ceremonies, company picnics, board meetings where she'd color quietly while I presented quarterly reports. She became our unofficial mascot, the bright-eyed little girl who reminded everyone why we worked so hard. "Someday this will all be yours, sweetheart," I'd tell her during late nights at the office, a small head resting against my shoulder as I reviewed contracts. The sacrifices were enormous. Dating was impossible. Who had time with a growing business and a daughter to raise? Social life vanished under spreadsheets and Charlotte's school events. Every decision filtered through one question: what's best for Charlotte's future? By 2000, we'd gone fully digital, pioneering tracking systems that competitors envied. By 2010, we were handling logistics for Fortune 500 companies. By 2020, Charlotte was married to Jeffrey, and I was planning my exit strategy, preparing to hand her the empire I'd built brick by brick. The sale to TechFlow Corporation for $18 million was supposed to be my masterpiece, the perfect ending bending to a perfect plan. Charlotte would inherit security beyond imagination, never knowing the poverty that had driven me from those Harlem streets to Manhattan boardrooms. All those years, every contract signed, every risk taken, it was all for her. And now, sitting across from Charlotte's greedy eyes, I finally understood what I had created. Those memories felt so real, sitting in my study surrounded by the fruits of that labor. The signed contracts lay spread across my mahogany desk like victory banners, the $18 million confirmation gleaming from my computer screen. Charlotte's future was finally secured. I leaned back in my leather chair, surveying the framed awards lining my office walls. 40 years of building Scott Logistics from a cramped Bronx room to this moment. It felt surreal. The weight of accomplishment settled warm in my chest. The shower water ran hot as I prepared for dinner, steam fogging the bathroom mirror. This wasn't just any meal. This was celebration, vindication, the moment when everything I'd sacrificed would make sense. I shaved carefully, each stroke of the razor deliberate, ceremonial. My phone rang as I selected my finest navy suit from the walk-in closet. "Arnold, congratulations!" Emma Thornton's voice carried professional warmth. "Wire transfer confirmed. 18 million, clean and clear." "Thank you, Emma." I adjusted my silk tie in the bedroom mirror. 40 years of work finally paying off. "You've earned every penny. Enjoy your celebration tonight." Celebration. The word tasted sweet. I walked to the living room mantel, studying the family photos arranged there like a shrine to better times. Wedding pictures with Linda, baby Charlotte in her christening gown, graduation photos marking each milestone of the life we'd built together. I paused at Linda's portrait, her smile frozen in time. "We did it, sweetheart. Charlotte's set for life now." My fingers traced the glass frame. Everything we dreamed of. The taxi arrived at 6:45. Brooklyn's familiar streets gave way to Manhattan's glittering skyline as we crossed the bridge. Through the window, the city sparkled with promise, each light representing opportunity, success, the American dream made tangible. "Where to, sir?" "Empire Heights Restaurant. Tonight, we celebrate." The driver nodded, accelerating through traffic. I checked my watch. 7 p.m. exactly. Perfect timing as always. Charlotte and Jeffrey would arrive at 7:30, giving me time to settle in, order champagne, set the stage for this momentous evening. My reflection in the taxi window showed a man at peace, silver at my temples, lines earned through decades of honest work, eyes bright with anticipation. This was my moment, our moment as a family. The elevator opened onto the restaurant's marble foyer, chandeliers casting warm light across empty tables. In 30 minutes, Charlotte and Jeffrey would be here. I straightened my tie and walked toward our reserved table by the window. I was already seated, documents spread proudly on the marble table, when I saw them emerge from the elevator. Charlotte looked stunning in her black dress, Jeffrey sharp in his suit, but something in their synchronized arrival felt rehearsed. "Dad!" Charlotte's embrace was warm, her perfume familiar, but her smile seemed strained around the edges. Jeffrey shook my hand with practiced firmness. "Arnold, you look fantastic. Success suits you." They settled across from me, and I couldn't shake the feeling they'd coordinated more than just their arrival time. The way they exchanged glances, quick and meaningful, like actors hitting their marks. "Kids, you can't imagine how happy I am. This is our moment." I gestured toward the contract papers, my voice carrying across the elegant dining room. "Dad, you deserve this." Charlotte's fingers drummed against the white tablecloth. 40 years of hard work. "Yes, that's an incredible sum." Jeffrey's eyes lingered on the documents. "Hard to even imagine." Marcus appeared with practiced discretion, his nameplate catching the soft light. I ordered Dom Perignon, the expensive bottle, not the house champagne. Tonight called for the best. "The important thing is now we have a future. Our future." I spread the contracts wider, wanting them to see every signature, every dollar figure. Charlotte barely glanced at the paperwork. "Dad, about your will. You mentioned updating it after the sale." Something cold touched my spine. Here was my daughter, presented with the culmination of everything I'd built, and she was thinking about my death. Jeffrey checked his watch, the third time since sitting down. "We'd like to know the details, for planning purposes." "Planning?" I forced a laugh. "I'm 65, not 95. "Of course not." Charlotte's voice carried forced brightness. "We just want to understand the family's position." Marcus returned with the champagne, the cork releasing with satisfying authority. The bubbles caught the restaurant's ambient lighting, each glass promising celebration. Yet my daughter and son-in-law seemed distracted, urgent. "When I'm gone, everything will be yours, Charlotte." I raised my glass. "But let's not talk about endings tonight." Jeffrey's fork clinked against his plate, the sound sharp and sudden. His attention snapped to Charlotte's face with laser focus, something electric passing between them. "What Jeffrey means," Charlotte said quickly, "is that we appreciate your generosity, But I'd seen that look, the hunger in their eyes when I mentioned my death, the way they leaned forward like predators scenting prey. This wasn't daughterly concern or son-in-law respect. This was calculation. Jeffrey kept glancing toward the restaurant entrance, then back to his watch. Actually, Arnold, we should discuss specifics. Timeline, asset distribution. Tonight, I studied their faces more carefully now. This is a celebration dinner. Of course, Dad. Charlotte stood abruptly. We'll be right back. Jeffrey immediately followed, their movements synchronized like dancers who'd rehearsed this routine. They walked toward the restrooms together, leaving me alone with my champagne and growing unease. Couples don't usually visit restrooms together. In 40 years of watching married people, I'd never seen. Alone at the table, I found myself staring at the bathroom entrance. Why would they go together? In 40 years of watching couples, I'd never seen such coordinated behavior, unless they were planning something private. The inheritance conversation replayed in my mind, their sharp attention when I mentioned being gone, Jeffrey's immediate focus, Charlotte's nervous energy. Pieces of a puzzle I didn't want to solve started clicking together. Marcus moved between tables with professional grace, but I noticed him glancing toward the restroom area, his expression troubled. He refilled water glasses nearby, his movements slower than usual, like someone processing difficult information. Minutes dragged by. How long does it take to use a restroom? I sipped champagne that suddenly tasted flat, watching other diners enjoy their meals while dread settled in my stomach like lead. Marcus approached my table, his young face creased with worry. Sir, excuse me, but I need to tell you something urgent. What's wrong, son? He glanced toward the restrooms, then leaned closer, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. I overheard your family talking. They want to poison you tonight. The words hit like physical blows. That's impossible. She's my daughter. Sir, I heard them discussing putting something in your drink. They mentioned waiting for you to be gone. Marcus's hands trembled slightly. They're planning to come back and act normal. My world tilted. The elegant restaurant, the celebration, the $18 million. Everything became surreal, distant. You're mistaken. Charlotte would never. They have something with them. Small vial. The man said, when it's done, everything changes. Marcus glanced toward the bathrooms again. They'll be back soon. Reality crashed over me like ice water. Jeffrey's watch checking. He was timing something. Charlotte's impatience with my celebration. She wanted this over quickly. Their synchronized arrival, the rehearsed responses, the hunger in their eyes when I mentioned inheritance. My own daughter, the baby I'd raised alone, sacrificed everything for, built an empire to secure. The little girl who used to sleep in my arms during business meetings, who called me daddy even as an adult. How long ago did you hear this? Just now. They thought they were alone. Marcus's voice carried the weight of moral struggle. I couldn't just let them. I mean, you seem like a good man. Charlotte and Jeffrey appeared in the distance, walking back toward our table with calculated casualness. Charlotte smoothed her dress. Jeffrey adjusted his jacket, small gestures that now seemed sinister. There's a service exit through the kitchen. Marcus spoke quickly, urgently. You need to go now. Before they return, I gathered the contracts with shaking hands. $18 million meant nothing if I was dead to spend it. 40 years of building trust was about to become a lifetime of vigilance. Thank you, son. I stood on unsteady legs. You just saved my life. Charlotte was 20 feet away now, her smile bright and false as stage lighting. Jeffrey checked his watch one final time. 0 hour approaching. Marcus glanced toward the restrooms. There's a service exit through the kitchen. You need to go now. I gathered my documents with shaking hands. 40 years of trust was about to become a lifetime of vigilance. The words hit me like ice water. Poison. My own daughter. My mind rejected it automatically, the way a body rejects a foreign organ, searching desperately for alternative explanations. Marcus was mistaken. He'd misheard something. Children don't murder parents for inheritance money. But even as denial flooded my thoughts, fragments of their behavior tonight assembled into a horrifying mosaic. Charlotte's immediate focus on inheritance discussions. Jeffrey's obsessive watch-checking, as if he was timing something crucial. Their synchronized bathroom departure, like actors following a script. This is impossible. She's my daughter. The words felt hollow, even as I spoke them. Sir, I understand, but they'll return soon. Marcus glanced toward the restroom area, his young face creased with urgency. My hands trembled as I gathered the scattered documents. The $18 million contracts that had felt so triumphant an hour ago now seemed like death warrants. Charlotte wasn't celebrating my success tonight. She was expediting my demise. The business mind that had built Scott Logistics from nothing began overriding parental emotion. 40 years of analyzing problems, calculating risks, reading people's true motivations. I'd missed it entirely with my own daughter because love had blinded me to her greed. Jeffrey's constant timing references made sense now. They had a schedule. Charlotte's artificial enthusiasm about my health. She was ensuring I was strong enough for whatever they'd planned. Their coordinated arrival, the way they moved like a team. How long do I have? Maybe 2 minutes? They're finishing up. 2 minutes to process that my child, the baby I'd raised alone, sacrificed everything for, wanted me dead. The little girl who used to fall asleep in my arms during business meetings had grown into a woman calculating my murder. Every instinct screamed to confront them, demand explanations, give them a chance to explain this nightmare away. But my business training recognized a different truth. Information was power. If Marcus was right and the evidence was overwhelming, then confronting them would only alert them to change tactics. The will, I mentioned updating the will tonight. The realization hit like a physical blow. There's a service exit through the kitchen. Hurry! I stood on unsteady legs, my worldview reconstructing itself around this new reality. Charlotte and Jeffrey weren't here to celebrate with me. They were here to kill me. The 18 million wasn't a gift to share with family. It was motivation for patricide. Marcus gestured toward the kitchen entrance. Every instinct told me to confront them, demand explanations, give Charlotte one last chance to prove Marcus wrong. But 40 years of business had taught me something more valuable than family loyalty, the power of information. I needed to see this with my own eyes. The kitchen staff barely glanced up as I followed Marcus through the maze of steel counters and steam. The service door opened onto a narrow alley that reeked of dumpsters and rain-soaked concrete, a stark contrast to Empire Heights' marble elegance. That window, Marcus pointed to our table's view. You can see everything from behind those trash containers. I positioned myself in the shadows, garbage bins providing cover while offering a clear sightline to our table. The champagne glasses caught the restaurant's warm lighting, including mine, still full, still waiting for my return. The alley's urban decay surrounded me like a metaphor for this evening's revelations. 40 years of building a life, a business, a relationship with my daughter, and it had come to this, hiding behind dumpsters to see if she really wanted me dead. Charlotte and Jeffrey reappeared at our table, their movements casual but coordinated. From this distance, they looked like any successful young couple enjoying an expensive dinner. If I didn't know better, I'd admire their composure. Charlotte sat first, scanning the restaurant with practiced nonchalance. Jeffrey remained standing, checking sightlines to other diners, ensuring privacy for whatever came next. Their professionalism was chilling. They'd planned this meticulously. "Where is Dad? He's been gone too long." Charlotte's voice carried through the window, muffled but audible. Jeffrey slid into his seat. "Probably took a business call. You know how he is." She reached into her purse, movements casual but deliberate. A small vial emerged. Clear liquid barely visible in the restaurant's lighting. My breath caught in my throat. There it was, the poison Marcus had overheard them discussing. "Move quickly." Jeffrey glanced around the dining room again. Charlotte unscrewed the vial's cap with steady fingers. No trembling, no hesitation. She'd done this before or practiced extensively. The realization that my daughter was potentially a serial killer hit me like a sledgehammer. She tilted the vial over my champagne glass, liquid disappearing into the Dom Perignon without trace. The motion was swift, clinical, efficient. Then she slipped the empty vial back into her purse and smoothed her dress, returning to the performance of concerned daughter. "How much did you put in?" Jeffrey's voice was barely audible. "Enough. It has to look natural. Natural. They wanted my death to appear from natural causes, heart attack, stroke, something an elderly businessman might suffer after a stressful day. The $18 million sale would be the perfect cover story. Excitement and stress overwhelming an aging man's system. I pressed against the brick wall, urban grime soaking through my expensive suit. My own blood, my own daughter, sitting calmly after poisoning what she believed would be my final drink. The little girl who'd called me daddy, who'd slept in boardrooms while I built her future, had just tried to murder me for that same future. I had seen enough, more than enough. They sat there now, waiting for their father and father-in-law to return and drink his own death. But I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. I stepped deeper into the alley shadows, already planning my next move. 3 blocks from Empire Heights, I finally allowed myself to hail a taxi, far enough away that they couldn't spot me, close enough that the poison was probably still dissolving in champagne they expected me to drink within the hour. "Brooklyn Heights," I told the driver, settling into worn leather seats that felt more honest than the restaurant's luxury. The city lights blurred past as we crossed the bridge, each block creating distance from the daughter who'd just tried to kill me. My hands had stopped trembling, replaced by the cold calculation that had built my empire. Business mode was fully engaged now. Home felt different when I unlocked the front door. The family photos lining the hallway, Charlotte's baby pictures, graduation ceremonies, wedding photos, looked like evidence from a crime scene. How long had she been planning this? Years? Since Jeffrey entered her life. I walked to the living room mantel, studying her childhood images with new eyes. The innocent smile, gap-toothed grin, arms wrapped around my neck in pure trust. When had that changed? When had love transformed into greed? The phone rang at 9:30. "Dad, where are you? We've been waiting." Charlotte's voice carried perfectly crafted panic, the performance of a concerned daughter whose father had mysteriously vanished. I summoned every acting skill 40 years of business negotiations had taught me, making my voice weak, strained. Felt suddenly ill. Had to leave. "Sorry, sweetheart." "Ill? What kind of ill? Should we call a doctor? An ambulance?" Her eagerness was revealing. She wanted medical confirmation, official documentation that I was dying or dead. Probably had a story ready about how I'd seemed fine at dinner, how the excitement must have triggered some underlying condition. No, just exhaustion. Too much excitement today." I coughed for effect. "The sale, the celebration, my old heart couldn't handle it. You sure you're okay? You sound terrible." Terrible. If only she knew how terrible. Not from illness, but from discovering my own daughter was a murderer. "I'll be fine. We'll celebrate properly tomorrow." Tomorrow, when they expected me to be dead or hospitalized from their poison. "Dad, maybe Jeffrey and I should come over, check on you." "No need. I just need rest." After hanging up, I sat in my leather chair, surrounded by 40 years of honest work's rewards. Family photos smiled down from every surface. Lies, all of them. The loving daughter, the proud father, the happy family. But those lies had taught me something tonight. Charlotte thought she was the predator, that I was the unsuspecting prey stumbling toward my death. She had no idea I'd seen through her performance. For the first time since Marcus's warning, I had the advantage. After hanging up, I sat in my leather chair, surrounded by 40 years of honest work's rewards. But honesty was a luxury I could no longer afford. Charlotte and Jeffrey had taught me a new game tonight, and I intended to win it. The next morning arrived grey and cold, matching the emptiness where my love for Charlotte used to live. But emptiness, I discovered, could be filled with something far more powerful: purpose. I sat in my study, legal pads spread across the mahogany desk like battlefield maps. Lists covered every page: assets, timeline, evidence, strategic advantages. 40 years of building Scott logistics had taught me that revenge, like business, required methodical planning and precise execution. First priority, legal protection. Emma Thornton answered on the second ring. "Emma, I need to change my will immediately. Emergency basis." "Arnold, what's happened? You sound different." "Different." That was one way to describe the transformation from loving father to strategic opponent. "My daughter tried to poison me for the inheritance money last Tuesday." Silence stretched across the phone line. Professional lawyers rarely experience genuine shock, but attempted patricide qualified. "These are serious accusations, Arnold. Do you have proof?" "I saw them do it with my own eyes. I have a witness, but proof isn't what I'm after right now." "Then what do you want?" "Justice. And I want them to know they lost everything through their own greed." Emma's office occupied the 32nd floor of a Manhattan tower, all glass and steel efficiency. She listened without interruption as I detailed Tuesday's events, Marcus's warning, the alley surveillance, witnessing Charlotte pour poison into my champagne with clinical precision. "The legal options are clear," Emma said, reviewing her notes. "Criminal charges, civil action, restraining orders. But you're talking about something else entirely. I want every penny redirected to charity. Make the will challenge-proof. Multiple witnesses, notarization, psychiatric evaluation if needed. They get nothing." "Arnold, are you certain about this approach? Family reconciliation might be—" "Family," the word tasted bitter. "They murdered that relationship when they chose $18 million over their father's life." Emma prepared the documents with lawyers' precision. The American Cancer Society, United Negro College Fund, local food banks, organizations that would honor Linda's memory better than a daughter who'd inherited only her mother's beauty, none of her character. "We'll need copies for presentation," Emma said, sealing the original. "If you're planning what I think you're planning." They chose the restaurant as their killing ground. It seems fitting they should learn about their defeat in the same location. The next 3 days passed in careful preparation. Restaurant reservations at Empire Heights for Thursday evening. Phone calls to Charlotte and Jeffrey, my voice carrying paternal warmth that masked cold calculation. "Kids, I've had time to think about last Tuesday. About family, legacy, the future. Can we meet for dinner? I have something important to discuss." Charlotte's eagerness was audible. "Of course, Dad." Jeffrey and I would love that. Love, such a corrupted word in her mouth. Emma handed me the sealed copies of the new will Thursday afternoon. Are you sure about this approach, Arnold? I folded the documents into my jacket pocket. They chose the battlefield when they tried to poison me. I'm just picking the time and place for surrender. Empire Heights looked exactly the same as a week ago, but I was a different man walking through those doors. The hostess smiled, leading me to the same table where they'd tried to kill me. The irony felt perfect. Justice served where injustice had been attempted. Marcus appeared at my side, his professional demeanor masking shared knowledge. We'd spoken twice since that night, confirming details, ensuring his testimony would be precise and damaging. Good evening, Mr. Scott. The usual champagne? Not tonight, Marcus. Just water. I want to stay completely clear-headed. He understood immediately. Tonight required surgical precision, not celebration. At 7:15, Charlotte and Jeffrey emerged from the elevator, their confidence radiating across the dining room. She wore the same black dress as last Tuesday. Was that intentional symbolism or mere coincidence? Jeffrey checked his watch habitually, though tonight he wasn't timing murder. Dad! Charlotte's embrace felt like theater now. You look wonderful. Much better than last week. I feel better than I have in years, sweetheart. Jeffrey's handshake was firm, his smile calculatedly warm. Good to see you recovered, Arnold. We were genuinely worried their poison hadn't worked fast enough. They settled into the same seats they'd occupied while plotting my death. The view of Central Park stretched beyond the windows, unchanged and eternal, while we played our deadly charade of family affection. Dad, you sounded mysterious on the phone, Charlotte said, arranging her napkin with practiced elegance. What's this important discussion about? Patience, sweetheart. All will be revealed. Jeffrey leaned forward slightly. Is this about business? The sale proceeds, perhaps? Always focused on money. Even now, believing they'd successfully murdered me or watched me die naturally, his primary concern was financial advantage. In a way, yes. It's about your future. Both of your futures. Their eyes lit up with anticipation. Charlotte reached across the table, squeezing my hand with what once would have seemed like daughterly affection, but now felt like vulture's claws. Marcus refilled water glasses, moving with practiced invisibility while positioned perfectly to witness whatever unfolded. His presence comforted me. Moral support from the man who'd saved my life. You're being mysterious, Dad. What kind of future are we discussing? I reached into my jacket and withdrew the manila envelope Emma had prepared. The documents inside would destroy every dream, every plan, every greedy calculation they'd made about my death. Charlotte's eyes brightened further. Jeffrey leaned forward, barely containing his eagerness. Neither realized they were looking at the end of everything they'd planned for. The documents rustled as I spread them across the marble table. These are the papers I wanted you to see, I said, watching their faces transform from anticipation to confusion to dawning horror. Charlotte picked up the first page, her manicured fingers trembling slightly. This is a will. Yes, sweetheart, my new will, executed 3 days ago. Jeffrey grabbed his copy, scanning rapidly. His face went ashen as the implications became clear. Arnold, this says everything goes to charity. Everything. The American Cancer Society, United Negro College Fund, local food banks, organizations that will honor your mother's memory better than— What? Charlotte's voice cracked like breaking glass. Dad, you can't do this. I'm your daughter. I know exactly what you are. The words emerged cold as winter steel. I know about the poison you put in my champagne glass last Tuesday evening. Jeffrey's fork clattered to the plate. That's impossible. What poison? His slip was beautiful, attempting denial, while accidentally confirming guilt. You mean the poison Charlotte poured from a small vial, while you watched for witnesses? The poison intended to make my death look natural, after an exciting day of business success. Charlotte's performance crumbled entirely. This is insane. You're having some kind of breakdown. Marcus, I called quietly, please tell them what you witnessed last Tuesday. Our waiter stepped forward, his young face serious and determined. I saw you both in the bathroom area, discussing putting something in his drink. Then I watched from the service station as the lady added something to his champagne glass while you kept watch. That's a lie. Jeffrey's voice rose dangerously. You can't prove anything. I don't need to prove it in court, I replied calmly. I only needed to ensure you never benefit from trying to murder me. Charlotte's mask of innocence finally shattered completely. You can't abandon family. You can't just throw away everything You threw it away when you chose $18 million over your father's life. She turned to Jeffrey, desperation replacing calculation. Do something. This can't be legal. The will is ironclad, I continued. Multiple witnesses, psychiatric evaluation confirming my competence, notarized and filed. You get nothing because you deserve nothing. Jeffrey stood abruptly, his chair scraping against marble. This is harassment. We're leaving. You have two choices, I said, remaining seated with perfect calm. Leave quietly, or I call the police and press attempted murder charges. Marcus here is prepared to testify. Charlotte made one final attempt at emotional manipulation, tears streaming down her cheeks. Daddy, please, I made a mistake. But I'm still your little girl. My little girl died the moment she decided her father's death was worth $18 million. They stumbled away from the table, Jeffrey pulling Charlotte toward the elevators, their dreams of easy money shattered against the rocks of justice. Whispered arguments carried across the dining room, blame, recrimination, the sound of partnership dissolving under pressure. I remained seated, looking out at the city lights that had witnessed both their crime and my justice. Marcus approached quietly. Will you be all right, sir? Better than all right, son. For the first time in a week, everything is exactly as it should be. 40 years of honest work had taught me that the best victories aren't about destroying your enemies. They're about ensuring justice prevails, even when it breaks your heart to deliver it. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.